The morning broke gray and heavy, like a bruise spreading across the sky. I woke up in our apartment, the familiar hum of the city filtering through the window, a distant siren, the clatter of a delivery truck, the soft coo of pigeons on the balcony. Everything was as it should be, yet something fell off, like a melody played just a half note sharp. A quiet unease settled in my chest, a weight I couldn't name. I chalked it up to the usual suspects. Too many late nights at work, not enough sleep, maybe one too many cups of coffee the day before. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. My heart was trying to tell me something my mind wasn't ready to hear. The apartment was a museum of our life together. On the wall, a framed photo from a trip to the Rockies. Us laughing, arms tangled, her hair whipping in the wind. On the counter, a chipped mug she refused to throw out, claiming it made her coffee taste better. The couch, where we'd spent countless nights binge-watching shows, her legs draped over mine. Every object carried a memory, but today they felt like relics, artifacts of a happiness I wasn't sure still existed. I sat at the kitchen table, that would cool under my palms, and opened my MacBook to finish an email. The routine was supposed to ground me, to drown out the hum of doubt. It didn't. Then it happened. A notification slid into the top corner of the screen, a small, innocuous ping that cracked my world open. A message from her Apple ID. She'd forgotten to sign out after using my laptop last week to print something, maybe boarding passes or a contract I couldn't even recall. The message was short, one sentence that hit like a sucker punch. Waiting by the elevator winking face from someone saved as Travis, client. I stared at it, the words burning into my retinas. I read it again, then a third time, as if repetition could change its meaning. Travis? I knew her clients. She talked about them constantly. Serge from sales, Elena the designer, that annoying tech rep, Anton. Their names were as familiar as the rhythm of her voice. But Travis? Travis was a stranger, and that winking emoji, with its casual, cocky curve, felt like a slap across the face. My pulse quickened, a dull thud in my ears. I tried to reason it away. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe Travis was just a new client, someone she hadn't mentioned yet. Maybe the emoji was a joke, a quirk of his, not hers. But the more I rationalized, the louder my instinct screamed. I sat frozen, the cursor blinking on my unfinished email, the coffee in my mug growing cold. The apartment, once a sanctuary, now felt like a stage set, every prop carefully placed to hide the truth. Then I heard her. The click of her heels on the hardwood, sharp and deliberate, like a metronome counting down to something inevitable. She walked into the kitchen, and the air shifted. She was wearing that navy blue dress, the one that hugged her curves like it was tailored for her soul. She only wore it for big occasions, weddings, galas, moments that demanded attention. Today wasn't one of those days, or so I thought. Her perfume hit me next, not the bright citrus she usually wore to the office, but something richer, floral, expensive, like she'd stepped out of someone else's life. Her makeup was meticulous, smoky eyes, a bold lip, the kind of effort that spoke of intention, of wanting to be seen. She didn't notice my stare at first, too busy adjusting an earring, her movements practiced, almost performative. "Morning," she said, her voice light, as if the world hadn't just tilted. She poured herself coffee, the liquid glugging into her favorite mug, and leaned against the counter, scrolling her phone. I watched her, searching for a sign, guilt, nerves, anything. But she was calm, too calm, like someone who'd rehearsed this moment. I turned the laptop toward her, the message still glowing on the screen. "What's this?" My voice was steady, but inside, I was unraveling. She froze, just for a second, her eyes flicking to the screen. Then she smiled, a quick, practiced curve of her lips. "Oh, that's Travis," she said, as if we were discussing the weather. "New client. I mentioned him, didn't I? It's his birthday tonight, so we're doing a little team dinner." "No big deal." She sipped her coffee, but her fingers tightened around the mug, a tell she probably didn't even notice. "You never mentioned to Travis," I said, my words careful, measured. "And what's with the winking face?" She sighed, a touch of annoyance creeping into her tone. "Mark, come on. It's just a text. He's a bit flashy, likes emojis. Don't make it weird." She set the mug down, harder than necessary, and smoothed her dress. "I'm not doing this again. You don't need to interrogate me every time I go out." I swallowed the urge to push back, to demand names, details, truth. Instead, I said stay tonight. It wasn't a command, not even a plea, just a quiet request, raw and unguarded. Just one night. For us. She paused, her hand hovering over her purse. For a moment, I thought I saw it. Fear, not anger, flickering in her eyes. But it vanished, replaced by a cool resolve. I deserve one evening out, she said, her voice sharp, like a door slamming shut. Don't be so jealous, Mark. We're adults. She grabbed her clutch, her heels clicking as she walked to the door. The sound echoed in my skull, each step a nail in the coffin of what we'd been. The door closed with a soft thud, and the silence that followed was deafening. I sat there, staring at the table, the grain of the wood blurring as my eyes burned. The coffee was stone cold now, the laptop screen dimming. Outside, the city hummed on, indifferent, and inside me, something cracked. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet fracture, the kind that starts small but grows until it swallows everything. The apartment was too quiet after she left, the kind of silence that presses against your eardrums, amplifying every small sound. The refrigerator hummed, a low, mournful drone. The clock on the wall ticked, each second a reminder of her absence. The city outside murmured. Car horns, a distant shout, the faint wail of a siren. But inside, it was just me, the cold coffee, and the ghost of that message, waiting by the elevator winking-faced. I sat at the kitchen table, my hands clasped so tightly my knuckles whitened, trying to piece together when a woman I loved had become a stranger. I replayed her words in my head, dissecting them for truth. New client, she'd said, her voice smooth, practiced. Team dinner. But the way her eyes had darted away, the way her fingers had gripped her mug, just a fraction too hard, it betrayed her. I knew her tells, the subtle shifts in her posture, the pitch of her voice when she was nervous. 7 years together had taught me to read her like a book, but now I wondered if I'd been skimming the pages, missing the plot twists. Had she mentioned a Travis? I racked my brain, sifting through months of conversations, her rants about work, her stories about clients, her laughter over office gossip. No Travis. Not once. I stood, pacing the kitchen, the hardwood cool under my socks. The photo on the wall caught my eye. Us in the Rockies, her head on my shoulder, the sky endless behind us. She looked at me, then like I was her world. When had that changed? When had her smiles become performances, her touches mechanical? I thought of the past few months, her late nights at work, her phone always face down, her sudden interest in new perfumes, new dresses. I told myself it was nothing, that she was just stressed, ambitious, evolving. Love makes you blind, but comfort makes you stupid. I'd ignored the signs because I wanted to believe we were unbreakable. The weight in my chest grew heavier, a mix of dread and betrayal. I sank back into the chair, staring at the laptop screen, the message still open like an accusation. I wanted to text her to demand answers. Who is he? Where are you? Why didn't you stay? But my fingers hovered over the keyboard, paralyzed. What would I even say? Accuse her and risk her shutting me out? Beg her to come back and look pathetic? I closed the laptop, the click loud in the stillness, and leaned back, closing my eyes. The apartment smelled of her perfume, that floral scent that didn't belong to us anymore. It clung to the air, mocking me. Hours passed, though I barely noticed. The light outside shifted from gray to amber, the city settling into evening. My phone stayed silent. No texts, no calls, just the lock screen photo of us at a friend's wedding, her laughing, me looking at her like she was the only thing that mattered. I unlocked it, opened our chat, and typed, "Are you okay?" I deleted it. Typed again, "Just talk to me." Deleted that too. In the end, I sent nothing. I didn't want her excuses, her deflections. I wanted her to choose me, to walk back through that door and prove me wrong. But the door stayed closed. When I heard the key in the lock, my heart lurched. It was past midnight, the city quieter now, the hum of traffic softened. She stepped inside, her heels clicking softly, her navy dress catching the dim light from the hallway. She looked flawless, her hair still perfect, her makeup untouched, as if the night hadn't dared to muss her. She set her clutch on the counter, her movements deliberate, and glanced at me, her expression unreadable. "Hey," she said, her voice light, like she'd just come back from grabbing milk. Didn't expect you to still be up. I didn't move, didn't speak. My eyes locked on her, searching for something, guilt, fear, anything. But she was a mask, her face smooth, her posture relaxed. She kicked off her heels, leaving them by the door, and padded to the fridge, pulling out a bottle of water. The casualness of it, the normalcy, twisted something inside me. "How was the dinner?" I asked, my voice low, steady, though my hands trembled in my lap. She paused, her back to me, then turned, leaning against the counter with a small smile. "It was fine. Just work stuff, you know. Travis is a bit much, but the team had fun." She twisted the cap off the bottle, taking a sip, her eyes flicking to mine briefly before darting away. "You didn't have to wait up, Mark. I told you it was no big deal." "No big deal," I echoed, the words bitter on my tongue. "You didn't mention it was his birthday, or that he'd be waiting by the elevator." Her smile faltered just for a second, but she recovered quickly, setting the bottle down with a soft clink. "God, Mark, are we really doing this again?" She crossed her arms, her tone sharp now, defensive. "It was a text, a stupid emoji. You're making it into something it's not." "Then tell me what it is," I said, standing, my voice still calm, but edged with something raw. "Because I asked you to stay, and you walked out. You didn't even look back." She sighed, rubbing her temple like I was exhausting her. "I'm not your prisoner, okay? I needed one night out. One night to not feel like I'm under a microscope. You don't get to control me because you're feeling insecure." Insecure. The word stung, a blade slipping between my ribs. "I'm not insecure. I'm scared because the woman I love is lying to me and I don't know why." Her eyes flashed, not with guilt but with anger. "You're being ridiculous. I told you it was a work thing. A bunch of us were there. I don't know you a play-by-play of my night." She turned, grabbing her clutch, her movements jerky now. "I'm going to bed. I'm not doing this." "Stay," I said again, softer this time, almost a whisper. "Just talk to me, please." She stopped, her hand on the doorway, her shoulders stiff. For a moment, I thought she might turn around, might sit down, might let the truth spill out. But she didn't. "I'm tired, Mark," she said, her voice flat, final. "We'll talk tomorrow." She walked down the hall, the guest room door closing with a soft click. Not our bedroom, hers now apparently. I stood there, the silence swallowing me whole, my chest tight with a grief I couldn't name. It wasn't just the message or the dress or the perfume. It was the way she'd looked at me, like I was a stranger, like our 7 years together were just a story she'd outgrown. I sank onto the couch, the cushions sagging under me, and stared at the ceiling, the shadows shifting as the city lights flickered outside. I didn't sleep that night. I just waited for what? I wasn't sure. Maybe for her to come back. Maybe for the truth. Maybe for the courage to face it. The night stretched on, endless and suffocating, the apartment a cage of memories and doubts. I lay on the couch, the springs creaking under my weight, staring at the ceiling where shadows danced from the streetlights outside. Her scent lingered, floral, unfamiliar, a stranger's perfume in our home. The guest room door stayed closed, her presence just a wall away but unreachable, like a star burning out in a distant galaxy. I didn't sleep, couldn't. My mind churned, replaying her words, her deflections, that damned winking emoji. "Team dinner," she'd said. No big deal. But the lie was in her eyes, in the way she'd flinched when I'd said her name, in the way she'd chosen the night over me. By morning, the city was waking. Delivery trucks rumbled, a dog barked somewhere down the block, the faint clatter of a neighbor's garbage bin. I sat up, my neck stiff, my eyes gritty, the weight in my chest now a stone. I made coffee out of habit, the machine gurgling as it filled the pot, but the mug sat untouched. The apartment felt smaller, the walls closing in, every object a reminder of what was slipping away. The photo on the wall, us in the Rockies, her smile wide and unguarded, mocked me. I wanted to believe her, to cling to the version of us that photo promised. But the truth was clawing its way out, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. I didn't plan to follow her. The thought alone made me feel pathetic, like I was auditioning for a role in a bad noir film. Disheveled husband, lurking in shadows, chasing ghosts. But sitting still was worse, each tick of the clock a taunt. I needed to know, not just suspect, not just feel. I needed proof, something solid to anchor the chaos in my head. So, when she left that evening, dressed in jeans and a blazer, but with that same floral perfume trailing her like a signature, I waited 10 minutes, then grabbed my keys. My hands shook as I locked the door, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I told myself I wasn't spying, just confirming. Maybe I'd see her car in the office lot, her laughing with coworkers, and I'd drive home, ashamed but relieved, ready to apologize for doubting her. Her office was 20 minutes away, a sleek glass building that gleamed even in the dusk, its windows reflecting the city's pulse. I parked across the street, sinking low in the driver's seat, the engine off, the air growing stale. My palms were sweaty, my breath shallow. I felt ridiculous, a man reduced to watching shadows, but I couldn't leave. The street was alive, people hurrying home, a street vendor packing up, a couple arguing under a flickering street lamp. But I was separate, a ghost in my own life. I kept my eyes on the building's entrance, the glass doors catching the last of the daylight. At 7:10 p.m., I saw her. She stepped out, her blazer draped over her arm, her hair catching the breeze. She was laughing, her face lit up in a way I hadn't seen in months, not with me. And she wasn't alone. A man walked beside her, tall, sharp haircut, expensive coat, his stride confident, proprietary. Travis. I didn't need a name tag to know. His hand rested on her lower back. Not in a coworker's casual touch, but in a way that claimed her, marked her as his. She tilted her head toward him, her laughter bright, the kind she used to save for our late-night talks, for moments when it was just us against the world. My breath caught, a sharp pain slicing through my chest. I wanted to look away, to unsee it, but my eyes were locked. They stopped at the edge of the parking lot, his hand still on her, her body angled toward him. He said something, and she smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. A gesture so familiar it gutted me. Then they kissed. Not a peck, not a mistake, but a slow, deliberate kiss, her hands on his chest, his fingers grazing her cheek. It was intimate practice, the kind of kiss that comes with history, with intent. When she pulled back, she looked at him the way she used to look at me, back when love was new, when we chose each other every day. I turned away, my vision blurring, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles ached. The world slowed, the sounds of the city muffled, as if I were underwater. I didn't cry, didn't scream. I just sat there, the truth settling over me like ash. She wasn't mine anymore, not emotionally, not in the ways that mattered. She'd been leaving me for months, maybe longer, and I'd been too blind, too comfortable to notice. The grief wasn't loud or explosive. It was quiet, bone deep, the kind that hollows you out and leaves you wondering who you are without the person you built your life around. I started the car. The engines hum a small anchor to reality. I didn't follow them, didn't need to. The image was seared into me, proof I hadn't wanted but couldn't deny. As I drove, the city blurred past, neon signs, pedestrians, the flicker of traffic lights. I felt untethered, like a kite cut loose in a storm. At a red light, a taxi idled beside me, the driver glancing over. He was older, gray hair peeking from under a cap, his face lined but kind. He rolled down his window, maybe sensing something in my expression. "You okay, buddy?" he asked, his voice rough but warm, cutting through the fog in my head. I nodded, though it was a lie. "Rough night." I managed my voice hoarse. He chuckled, not unkindly. "Yeah, they come and go. Name's Pete. You need a ride somewhere? Or you good?" "I'm good," I said, forcing a half-smile. "Thanks, Pete." He nodded, his eyes lingering a moment longer. "Son'll come up tomorrow." "Always does." The light changed, and he drove off, his taillights fading into the night. I don't know why his words stuck with me, but they did, a small lifeline in the dark. I drove home, the steering wheel vibrating under my clenched hands. The apartment was colder when I stepped inside, the air heavy with her absence. I sank onto the couch, the same one where we'd planned our future, where she'd once fallen asleep with her head in my lap. Now it felt like a stranger's furniture, part of life I no longer recognized. I closed my eyes, Pete's words echoing. "Son will come up tomorrow." I wanted to believe it, but right now, all I could feel was the weight of her betrayal and the quiet, terrifying certainty that nothing would ever be the same. The days after that night blurred into a strange, hollow routine, as if the world had paused but refused to admit it. The apartment, once a haven, became a battlefield of silence, each room charged with unspoken truths. She came home the next afternoon, breezing through the door with an iced coffee in a paper bag, sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. Her jeans were crisp, her blouse loose but deliberate, as if she'd curated her casualness. "Hey," she said, setting the coffee on the counter, her voice bright, oblivious to the chasm between us. "Got you a blueberry muffin, your favorite." I didn't look at it, didn't move from the couch where I'd spent the night, the cushions still dented from my restless tossing. She paused, sensing the shift, her smile faltering. "Everything okay?" she asked, a tremor in her voice, like she was testing the ice beneath her feet. I didn't answer, just stared at the coffee table, its surface cluttered with relics of our life. A candle she'd bought on a whim, a coaster from a bar we'd loved, a dog-eared novel we'd read aloud to each other. The silence stretched, heavy, suffocating. She sighed, brushing past me to the hallway, her footsteps soft but deliberate, as if she could outrun the tension. We became ghosts in our own home, orbiting each other with a precision that was almost cruel. Mornings began with the coffee machine's gurgle, 2 mugs set out for muscle memory. She'd sip hers at the table, scrolling her phone, her face lit by the screen's cold glow. "Want eggs?" she'd ask, her tone polite, distant, like a server at a diner. "I'm good," I'd reply, my voice flat, and we'd drift apart, me to the office, her to wherever she went now. I stopped asking. I didn't want to know. The apartment was a minefield of habits we couldn't shake. She folded my laundry without thinking, her fingers lingering on a shirt I'd worn last week. I bought her favorite cereal by mistake, the box sitting unopened in the pantry. Our dog, Luna, sensed it too, her brown eyes flicking between us, lingering in doorways, as if unsure who to follow. I wanted to apologize to her, to explain why her world had tilted, but I couldn't find the words for myself, let alone a dog. Nights were the worst. I wore headphones to bed, not for music but for noise, anything to drown out the sounds from the guest room. Her turning pages, sighing, pacing. Sometimes I heard her cry, soft and muffled, like she was hiding it from herself as much as from me. I never knocked, never checked on her. Those tears weren't mine to comfort anymore. The silence was louder than any fight, a constant reminder of what we'd lost. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, the cities filtering through the window, car horns, laughter, life moving on without us. I wondered when I'd stopped recognizing her, when the woman who'd laughed at my terrible jokes had become this stranger who lied with such ease. One evening, I found her asleep on the couch, a blanket half draped over her, the TV flickering with a documentary about coral reefs. Her mouth was slightly open, her mascara smudged, her face soft in a way that reminded me of before. For a moment, I saw her, the woman who'd planned our future, who'd danced with me in the kitchen to no music. But it wasn't her, not really. I turned off the TV, adjusted the blanket, and walked away, my chest tight with a grief I couldn't name. I didn't know why I did it. Maybe habit, maybe some stubborn part of me that hadn't caught up with the truth. She left a note once, stuck to the bathroom mirror. "You didn't deserve this." For words, scrawled in her familiar handwriting, the ink smudged where her hand had trembled. I stared at it for days, its presence a quiet accusation. I took it down one morning, folding it into my pocket. She noticed but didn't ask why. We never spoke of him, of Travis, of the kiss I'd seen. The air around it was thick, a fog we navigated without acknowledging. I resented how easily she slipped into this limbo, how she compartmentalized her betrayal, her guilt, our unraveling. She moved through the apartment like nothing had changed, her laughter at a TV show jarring, her casual good morning a knife twist. I started staying late at work, claiming meetings that didn't exist. I'd sit in the break room, scrolling articles I didn't read, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Sometimes I drive aimlessly, parking on quiet streets, the engine off, the city's pulse distant. Home wasn't home anymore. It was a hotel with bad lighting and sheer ghosts. The hardest part wasn't hating her. I wished I could. Hate would have been simpler, cleaner. Instead, I felt a hollow ache, a longing for peace I didn't know how to find. I didn't want revenge, didn't want to scream or throw her clothes out. I just wanted air, space, a way to breathe again. One evening, I saw Pete, the taxi driver again. I was walking to my car after another late night, the city wrapped in a chilly dusk. He was parked near my office, his cab's light glowing. He recognized me, rolling down his window with a grin. "Hey, it's the rough night guy," he said, his voice warm, grounding. "Sun come up yet?" "Barely," I admitted, leaning against his cab. "Feels like it's stuck behind clouds." He nodded, his eyes kind but sharp, like he saw more than I said. "Give it time, kid. You're tougher than you think." "Got a name?" "Mark," I said, managing a half smile. "Pete." He handed me a crumpled business card, the edges worn. "You need a ride? Or just someone to tell you the world ain't ending? You call." I pocketed the card, his words a small spark in the dark. "Thanks, Pete." As I drove home, the city lights blurred, Pete's voice echoing. "You're tougher than you think." I wanted to believe him, but the apartment loomed ahead, a silent war waiting to resume. She was there when I walked in, reading on the couch, Luna curled at her feet. She looked up, her eyes meeting mine for a moment, but neither of us spoke. I passed by, the weight of her presence heavy, and closed my bedroom door. The silence followed, thick and unyielding, but somewhere deep inside, a resolve was forming, quiet but firm. This couldn't last. I couldn't live like this. Not forever. The apartment had become a mausoleum, each room a tomb for memories we couldn't bury. 10 days into our silent war, the truth settled like dust. This limbo wasn't mercy, it was cruelty, to her, to me, to the life we'd built. She wasn't going to leave, not without me making it real. And I wasn't going to heal until I did. The realization came at night, as I lay on the couch, the city's hum filtering through the window, distant laughter, a car alarm, the soft patter of rain. I stared at the ceiling, Luna's quiet snores beside me, and knew it was time. Not for anger, not for revenge, but for freedom. The next morning, I moved with a clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. The air was crisp, the apartment bathed in pale light, the kind that makes everything feel fragile. She was in the kitchen, sipping coffee, her hair pulled back, her face bare of makeup. She looked almost like the woman I'd married, but the illusion shattered when she glanced up, her eyes guarded, waiting. I didn't speak, just walked to the bedroom and opened the closet. The olive green suitcases, her anniversary gift from our Montreal trip, sat tucked under winter coats, untouched since our last vacation. I pulled them out, the leather cool under my fingers, and laid them on the bed. The zipper's teeth parted with a sharp, final sound, cutting through the silence like a confession. She followed, her footsteps hesitant, stopping in the doorway. "Mark, what are you doing?" Her voice was small, not the confident deflection I'd grown used to. I didn't answer, just opened her drawers, pulling out her clothes, sweaters, t-shirts, those socks with silly patterns she'd once collected like treasures. I folded each item carefully, not out of anger, but with a quiet resolve, like I was packing for someone I no longer knew. "Seriously, what is this?" she asked, her tone sharper now, but trembling. I met her eyes, just once, long enough for her to see I wasn't bluffing. "I'm not asking questions," I said, my voice low, steady. Because I saw the answer. She swallowed hard, her hands clenching at her sides. "You saw me with him?" Her voice cracked, a plea disguised as a question. I nodded, placing a jacket in the suitcase. I didn't need a show. The ending was clear. She sank onto the bed, her shoulders slumping, the fight draining out of her. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered, her eyes fixed on the floor. "I thought I could fix it, that I just needed time." "You could have stayed," I said, zipping the first suitcase shut. That night I asked. "You chose him." Her breath hitched, and for the first time, I saw tears, real ones, not the muffled sobs I'd heard through the wall. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely audible. "I don't know why I did it." "I do," I replied, my tone soft but unflinching. "Because I stopped being new, and he made you feel new again." She didn't deny it, just sat there, her hands twisting in her lap, the silence heavier than any argument. I finished packing the second suitcase, the sound of the zipper sealing something final. "This isn't about punishing you," I said, carrying the bags to the door. "It's about making space. I can't breathe here anymore, not with all the pretending." She stood, following me, her eyes glistening but her face composed, like she was trying to hold onto some shred of dignity. "You're serious?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah," I nodded. "I am." She looked at the suitcases, their leather gleaming under the hallway light. as if they belonged to someone else, someone she didn't recognize. "I didn't expect this from you," she said after a pause, her voice shaking. "What did you expect?" I asked, not accusing, just curious. She didn't answer, her gaze drifting to the window, the city sprawling beyond, cars crawling, lights flickering, life moving on. "I don't even know where to go," she said, almost to herself. "That's not my decision anymore." I replied, my voice gentle but firm. She nodded, tears spilling now, soft and silent, the kind that come when the curtain falls and there's no encore. "You were always good to me," she said, her voice breaking. "I know," I said, "but I don't recognize you anymore." She bent down, zipping her coat, her movements slow, deliberate. She grabbed the suitcases, one in each hand, their weight pulling her shoulders down. "Will I ever see you again?" she asked, not turning back, her voice a thread about to snap. "Maybe," I said, "but it won't be the same." The door closed behind her, the click echoing louder than any fight we'd ever had. I stood there, the apartment suddenly vast, the silence clean for the first time in weeks. I walked to the balcony, the city air cold and sharp, carrying the scent of rain and possibility. I breathed deeply, the knot in my chest loosening, not gone but lighter. The skyline glittered indifferent but alive, and I felt something stir, a spark, a beginning. The next day I called Pete. He answered on the second ring, his voice warm, familiar. "Rough night, guy. How's a handjin?" I told him everything, the words spilling out over coffee at a diner near his cab stand. He listened, nodding, his eyes kind but steady, like he'd seen 100 stories like mine. "You didn't break, Mark," he said, stirring his coffee, the spoon clinking against the mug. "You stood up. That's more than most." I smiled, the first real one in weeks, the weight of his words settling like a foundation. "Thanks, Pete, for seeing me through." He waved it off, grinning. "Sun's up, ain't it? Keep walking." I left the diner, the city buzzing around me, street vendors calling, buses rumbling, people rushing toward their lives. The pain was still there, a bruise that would fade slowly, but I felt taller, steadier, like a man who'd survived a storm and found solid ground. The future was uncertain, a blank page, but it was mine, and for the first time in a long time, I was ready to write it.